Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today at the 2020 International Seeds Conference at Leeds Beckett University. My name is Erick Herrera, and today I'll be discussing my paper titled The Vulnerability of Governance Decision-Making When Choosing Projects for Programs and Portfolios. I selected this area of research mainly because of the considerable gaps in knowledge that are currently present in stakeholder theory and what it means for organizations to effectively and meaningfully involve their stakeholders within project, program, and portfolio decision-making. I focus on the project selection process of programs and portfolios because this is an area that typically does not consider stakeholder participation. I believed it was a little out of the ordinary that extensive literature documents the positive effects of active incorporation of stakeholders early on within project, program, and portfolio processes, yet despite this, organizations typically exclude stakeholders within the project selection processes. This point was critical for organizations to understand due to the tendency of objectives to fail when stakeholder expectations, interests, and needs were not sufficiently considered or were mismanaged. Therefore, instead of risking the negligence of stakeholder needs, my research suggests that the active incorporation of stakeholders within the project selection process can minimize the risk and negative effects of subjective decision-making within project selections. By implementing strategies that address the human aspects of project selections, organizations benefit from making decisions that are better aligned with their unique organizational strategy and overall culture. One of the main issues with the project selection processes used within programs and portfolios is the prevalence of centralized decision-making. The current forms of project selections fail to meet adequate requirements for stakeholder engagement. When I refer to stakeholders, I refer to anyone who can be or is affected by the successful or unsuccessful delivery of a project. For this paper, I focused on a smaller group of stakeholders, employee stakeholders, and their ability to influence change within organizational decision-making as it pertains to project selections. There is a considerable amount of data that organizational decision-makers are expected to fully understand in regard to project selections and is volatile to errors due to bias, lack of understanding, or a divergence of interest within groups. The lack of direct approaches used by organizations to allow employee stakeholders and their involvement within project selections leads to methods that circumvent, minimize, or exclude employees from decision-making. Academic research has supported the shift from a hard paradigm characterized by centralized decision-making and expert-based perspectives to a more democratic paradigm characterized by inclusivity and bottom-up approaches. Another issue with the project selection process is measuring value of a project simply through financial or economic metrics. Measuring the predicted value of projects within programs or portfolios through an economic or financial lens leads to a lack of attention on extended lifecycle perspectives, projects being social systems, long-term strategic focus, and the effective inclusion of stakeholders. This is because these factors cannot be measured simply through financial or economic terms. The effective use of democratic frameworks allows employees to feel a sense of direct involvement within organizational decision-making and can collectively grow an identity within an organization. The last issue with the project selection process is simply that projects are gambles and human decision-making is not well equipped to predict long-term outcomes. Decision-making within organizations typically involves a series of complex assessments of project data that consider future gains and expected losses. Due to the nature of certain internal and external factors, mistakes are made in assessing those risks and the proximity of risk, and simply because of the lack of resources, project managers tend to focus on more forefront issues. Organizations that do not provide a governance structure that support cooperative decision-making face a greater risk to project, program, and portfolio failure when employee stakeholders are not acknowledged. These employee stakeholders are in a position to evaluate risk at a greater level in regard to their position than upper level management would be. From the issues previously discussed, I developed two hypotheses that were tested through experimental design. I collected one set of data from 19 project management students that were asked to report their project selection preferences of 10 hypothetical projects, a short justification for their top 3 project selections, and the reported satisfaction levels with the results of the project selections using the 3 voting structures analyzed. I did this by means of a ranked choice survey, a short answer entry, and a 7-point Likert scale. The first project selection voting structure that was used was a merit-based voting structure, which was done by considering only one person's vote in the project selection process. This was done by randomly selecting a participant within the group to be the sole decision maker in deciding the final 3 projects that will be ultimately chosen for the program or portfolio. This was done to replicate the results of one upper-level management decision maker making the project selections for the entire organization. The second project selection voting structure that was developed from the ranked choice survey was titled the first past the post vote, also known as plurality voting. Because participants ranked their choice from 1 to 10, I was able to aggregate in a first past the post approach by only considering participants' number 1 choice. In this system, all participants vote, but they only get 1 vote towards the final 3 project selection. The last voting structure used to develop the project selection process was titled the ranked choice vote. In this system, participants were asked to rank their most preferred projects being 1 to their least preferred projects being 10. Votes are aggregated in rounds where each round the first candidate with the fewest first place votes are eliminated. Preferences are then shifted up accordingly. So if a voter's first preference is eliminated in the first round, then the second choice becomes their first choice, and this continues until a winner is declared. So the benefits of using this system is that it's also called a preferential system, meaning that preference and representation is put at the very top of this system's priorities. This also provides data that inform you not only on what participants most favored, represented in the blue as being their first choice, but it also gives you data on what they preferred the least, being the 10th selection, which was brown. This is why it's color coordinated and it shows you the full extent of their rankings. The results of the varying voting structures and the project selections that resulted from them gives us insight on the deviation between the merit-based vote, also known as the upper-level manager vote, and the group vote, which was represented by the first past the post and the ranked choice survey. The first past the post and the ranked choice survey resulted in the same project selections in the same order. Where you would see a difference between the first past the post and the ranked choice survey is if you increase the number of final projects to be selected within programs or portfolios, let's say 5 or 7, then the last few ranks would ultimately vary because of the aggregation of ranked choice vote. In these results, the merit-based project selection deviated 66% from that of the employee stakeholder group. The data suggests that if one high-level manager made decisions, there's a high probability that his or her project selections would greatly deviate from the group. The participants' reported satisfaction levels can inform us further on the employee stakeholder group's preferred method of project selection. The merit-based vote received the most unsatisfied participants with 52.6%. The first past the post system received 57.8% satisfied, but also 31.5% neutral. And lastly, the ranked choice vote received the highest number of satisfied participants, with the majority at 78.9% reporting satisfied. And this lets us know that our participants were more likely to be satisfied when their votes had a higher impact on the final project selections. Lastly, the participants' short answer entries were analyzed thematically. From their entries, codes were deduced, and from the codes, we derive at the 6 themes shown on the chart. The 6 themes show us that in terms of frequency, societal benefit, economic benefit, and passion of the sector were the 3 main reasons why our participants engage in projects. This deviated largely from the merit-based, also known as the single decision maker project selection motivations, which were 1, passion for the sector, 2, passion for the sector, and 3, economic benefit. Without consultation or input from the employee stakeholders, a high-level decision maker is prone to select projects for motivations that do not align with the overall organization's group culture. In conclusion, the data gathered in this experiment provides organizations with an opportunity to incorporate more objective measures within their project selection processes that are better aligned with their overall organizational strategy and culture. The subjective inclusion and/or exclusion of employee stakeholder groups during the selection of projects can lead to a risk of elitist and suboptimal decision-making strategies. The data gathered in this experiment also provide an opportunity to analyze what projects employees select, why they select those projects, and how satisfied they were with the approach that was used in the project selection process. By incorporating employees in the project selection process through the use of democratic voting structures, organizations can benefit from the group's higher level of interest and internal motivations in ensuring that a project is successfully delivered. Thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to my paper, and thank you to the International Seeds Conference for having me here.